Hey everyone, welcome back. If you're new here, my name is Lauren, and today I am going to be revealing the best books that I read in 2021. So overall, 2021, I would say it was a wonderful reading year. I don't have any stats on me. I'm not much of a stats person. If you really want to know stats, just tell me so down in the comments and I'll pull something together for a stats video. I think I read somewhere a little over 80 books, like 84, 85 books in 2021. And I'm a very picky reader, but I read, I would say, a couple of my all-time favorite books in 2021. I'm probably not gonna do a least favorites or anything, because as I was looking back through all of the books that I've read this past year, like there aren't enough of them that books that I like hated or had really negative emotions for. There aren't enough of them to make a video out of that. Yeah, I think I'm just gonna stick with the ones that I like the best. Yeah, so let's just jump right into it. So I have selected the 5 books that I loved the best of all of the books that I read in 2021. I also have a few honorable mentions. The reason that they aren't on the official list and that they are honorable mentions is because they're all part of a series and they all feel pretty interdependent on the other books in the series. A couple of the books in my favorites, and my top 5 favorites, they are technically the beginning of series. They don't feel like they're interdependent on books in the rest of the series. So the first honorable mention that I have is The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss. This is the first book, and I think what's going to be a trilogy. Everyone knows that the third has not come out. Everyone's been waiting forever and ever and ever for it to come out. There seem to be some mixed feelings on the second book and some genuine hatred towards the novella, so I am a little bit scared to read on, but I really loved this first book in the series. I don't want to go into too great detail on any of these books, like what they're about. I'll link my original reviews up in the cards up here, or maybe down in the video description box. I don't know how many cards I get, so it'll either be up there or down there. But the overall idea of this book, it's a man telling his life story, and he's telling it over the course of a few days, and each book in the series is supposed to be one of those days that he's telling his story. This is a high fantasy novel, and you kind of get the sense about this man that there is something really, really big in his past. The main reason that I love this book, I thought that the writing was absolutely beautiful. Patrick Rothfuss, he has a way with words, specifically with like poems and songs in books, which I think that most authors, when they try to put poems and songs in books, generally botch it. But for me, Patrick Rothfuss, he did a fantastic job in those elements in the book, and it really added to my experience reading the book. And I really liked the characters. I know a lot of people think that the protagonist, Kvothe, is really unlikable and just think they just hate his guts. I didn't feel that way. He seemed very realistic to me, very, just very real to me. So really enjoyed The Name of the Wind. If you enjoy high fantasy and you haven't read this book, then this is definitely worth the read. The second honorable mention that I have is The Dark Forest by Cixin Liu. This is the second book in the Remembrance of Earth's Past trilogy. There were some aspects of this that, I won't lie, they rubbed me a little bit the wrong way. But that being said, the reason that I love this book, and I will not stop thinking about it, it revealed a scientific kind of concept, I guess you would call it, that just blew my mind. Like the series is it's almost like a first contact of sorts. It is hard sci-fi, and it has some very technical content in it. It revealed this idea that had never occurred to me, and I don't know that I will ever look at first contact stories the same ever again. I'm just gonna say that much. They take a while to like really get going for both this and the 3-body problem. For the bulk of the book, I was just like, I don't get what's going on, but the way they come together, it just they are very thought-provoking books. I'll just leave it at that. And my final honorable mention is actually this is Nightfall, but it is the first book in a series called The Nightmareland Chronicles by Daniel Barnett. It's the Nightmareland Chronicles that are the honorable mention. And these books, I've only read 2 of them. I've read Nightfall and I've read Lullaby, but these books it's a serialized story. The books feel like, each book just feels like a chapter in one long continuous story. So that's definitely something to know going into these books. But the overarching idea of this book is a world that goes dark, and kind of how the people in it sort of respond to that and try to figure out their situation. I would consider this to be a thriller horror kind of mix of book, and these books are so intense. They are so compelling. Like, you are on the edge of your seat. I've only read 2 of them, but I cannot sing their praises loudly enough into this world. While I'm at it, I have to go on ahead and thank Leslie over at the Nerdy Narrative. It was her love of this series that really made me just really interested in getting into it. And boy, was she right. These books, they are fantastic. They will keep you on the edge of your seat. They're wonderful. So yeah, can't sing the praises of the Nightmareland Chronicles enough. So the book that takes the number 5 slot in my official favorite books of 2021 is Warbreaker by Brandon Sanderson. This is, I guess, technically going to be the first in a series. I don't know when the second one's coming out, but this first one, it stands alone very nicely. This is a high fantasy novel, and it is set in a world that has a color-based magic system. There are a couple of sisters, they're princesses who are more or less trying to save their kingdom. And some other characters, really interesting characters in here. There is a sentient inanimate object, which I think this was probably the first book that had something like that in it that I've ever read. It was a weird experience for me, but it made this list. So I would say overall, it was a fun experience. This is the first fantasy Brandon Sanderson novel that I've read. I've read a couple of his fantasy novels since, and they are all, thicker novels like this. And I'm in the middle of the Stormlight Archive right now. He has this mastery of like moving parts, there are little storylines going on that all just sort of weave together really beautifully in the end. I don't know, this book, it felt, I'm not going to say epic. It wasn't, the time span that it's set in, I think, is too short to really feel truly epic, but it was very engrossing. The action in this book, it is so much fun, to follow along, and it just feels very adventurous. The characters are extremely lovable. As far as Brandon Sanderson's fantasy novels go, so far, this might be my favorite one of his that I've read. This feels quite similar to the Mistborn series. So if you have read that and loved it and have not read Warbreaker, it's definitely worth picking up. So yeah, number 5, Warbreaker. My 4th favorite book that I read in 2021 was House of Leaves by Mark Z. Danielewski. You could consider it a lot of different genres, but I think most people think of this book as being a horror. It has kind of a love story in it. It has a lot of suspense in it. It almost has like kind of fantastical elements, almost like an urban fantasy sort of feel to it as well. This book, it is not for everyone. It's as heavy as a Bible. It's really intense, and it can be quite difficult and intimidating to get into. But this book, whatever you put into it, you will get back tenfold when you read it. The basic idea of this book is it is about a family who moves into a house that is bigger on the inside than it is on the outside. The characters, you get to know the characters so well in this book. I feel like one of the main strengths in this book is the character development, and the story, it sucked me in, and I was just absolutely enraptured by this book. You don't really realize how insanely well written this book is, I think, until you finished it and you reflect on it. Mostly while you're reading it, it feels, it can be kind of difficult and confusing and disorienting, which it is meant to be that way. And I think that rightfully so, puts a lot of people off. But I think if you go into this book knowing that that's the case, it can be such a fun ride. It just worked for me. I loved this book. It had a huge impact on me. I'm still thinking about it. I think I will continue to think about it for months, maybe even years. I don't know. But I absolutely adored this book. Number 3 on the list is Foundryside by Robert Jackson Bennett. This is the first in a series, and I cannot wait to get to the second book, Shorefall. This is a fantasy novel. I guess technically it is a high fantasy, but with a sort of urban-esque quality to it, I would say. It feels sort of like an industrialized type of magic. This is a heist book, and it is about a young girl she's a thief. She is a hired thief and gets involved in this high-stakes situation, and ultimately in this pretty intricate heist. This book also has a sentient inanimate object that I absolutely loved. When I think back about my experience reading Foundryside, it was just fun. Like, I was 100% engaged in the story. It felt very high stakes. I absolutely adored all of the characters in it. And whenever it ended, I just instantly wanted to jump into the next one. I don't usually feel that way about first books in series. I'm not a huge series kind of person. I read this fairly early in the year too, but I've continued to think about it ever since. And I think even whenever I closed this book, I was just like, yep, that's going to be on my best books list. So, and I still feel that way. I absolutely adored this. So yeah. Number 3 is Foundryside. My second favorite book that I read in 2021 was To Be Taught If Fortunate by Becky Chambers. This is just a very quick, quiet story. It's a little novella. It's only 135 pages long. It's a very quick little read. It's a science fiction story. It is about a crew of, I think it's maybe about 5 people on the ship that they are explorers in the galaxy. They are just on this mission of like scientific exploration and learning. It's not high tension. It's not a huge action story. It's about reaching out into the galaxy for the sake of science and learning and growing. And it just absolutely filled me with wonder. I have always been interested in science fiction. It is my favorite genre. The idea of space exploration just fills me with joy. And this is one of those kind of books that gave me this sort of childlike wonder, basically. Reading it, a favorite, has to touch me on a deeper level. And that is what this book did. It worked for me. It meant something to me beyond just being a book. I'm sure plenty of you have books like that in your life, which if you do, please tell me about it down below in the comments. I'd love to know. Do you have any books that it's hard to articulate why, but it has meaning and significance to you, and it's more than just a book to you? I would love to talk to you about it down below. But yeah, that is how I felt about this book. It's a beautiful story, beautiful writing, awe-inspiring. So yeah, this number 2, To Be Taught If Fortunate, it takes the spot. All right, we have made it to the number 1 spot on my list, my favorite book that I read in 2021, and it was Born by Jeff Vandermeer. This is a weird book. I'm not gonna lie, this is a weird book, and it's not for everyone. Jeff Vandermeer's writing is not for everyone, but it is 100% for me. This, in a nutshell, is a story of kind of this post-apocalyptic wasteland where humans, the people in this world, have to scavenge to survive, and a woman finds this creature thing that she ends up naming Born. The main idea is her getting to know this creature and building a relationship with this thing, and also trying to piece together why this world is the way it is. This book was perfect, in my opinion. It checked all of the boxes that I am looking for in a story. It was in a genre that I love. It had just the right amount of action for me, which is honestly quite a bit. This was a very exciting book. The characters were absolutely endearing, lovely, wonderful characters. The relationships in this book were just spot on. They were written with such care, so believably. This book just had me hook, line, and sinker. This was perfect to me. For me, this was a perfect book. So if you've ever wondered what Lauren at Paperback Empire thinks, what she thinks is a perfect book, what it takes, This is it right here. This is one of them, one of the very, very, very few. If you have ever been interested in reading a Jeff Vandermeer novel and you want a good place to start, I would start with this. This is way, way more accessible and easy to digest than some of his other works. If there's any Jeff, in my opinion, if there is any Jeff Vandermeer book to read, it is absolutely Born. So yeah, number one with a bullet. Born by Jeff Vandermeer. So that is it. Those are my favorite books of 2021. Ooh, there's a glare on there. Sorry about that. I'd be curious to know if you have read any of these books and what you thought about them. I'd also love to know what your favorite books of 2021 were. So please talk to me about it in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this video, I hope that you will like it and possibly subscribe, and I will see you next time. Bye.